Chapter 25, Black Dawn. A month later, we returned to North Carolina and the Hickory Clubhouse to attend the Copper Region Open Air Meeting, where we again prepared to discuss war plans against the Hells Angels and hear about the gangs' home invasions on neighbors who strayed too close to the Outlaws' clubhouse. A light drizzle fell. Thunder rumbled across the gray morning sky, full of foreboding. I whispered goodbye to my sleeping wife and son and strapped on my full-face helmet. I had purchased it only a month before, wary of the novelty caps the others wore. Nothing particularly compelled me to do it. I guess safety was my line in the sand. I played reckless, but I didn't want to be reckless. I had a family that needed me alive. As I gripped my ape hanger handlebars, cold shivered through me. It was early autumn, and the leaves changed from green to blood red gold. The scenery was my only clue that days ended and new ones began. My breath swirled around me in white vapor. There was nothing extraordinary about that morning. It was just a feeling I had moving and fast forward. I had heard that people who experienced trauma, a plane crash, a fire, a death, had strange stirrings moments before the crisis, heightened awareness, warnings. Most wished they had listened. Sounds and smells were more pronounced, colors more vivid. Some called it intuition, energy, inexplicable shifts in tempo. For me, it was something deeper, something spiritual. I should have listened. The streets, slick with rain and diesel fuel, pulled my tires toward dramatic dips and curves and threatened to spill me over. Bobby kept pace with me. JD and Gringo sped in front in their baggers. So far ahead, they formed a red smear against the approaching Blue Ridge Mountains. Claw rode behind in his car, and our cover team picked up the rear. Rain pelted my head. We fit an image, an illusion of freedom with rules. And though I was now a veteran rider, the appeal of biting wind in my face, fog in my headlights, and dark silhouettes in the distance was lost. So, focused on not crashing and keeping my front wheels steady, I had fleeting thoughts of turning around, of stopping. But adrenaline coursed me through. Gringo weaved dangerously ahead as he detoured to a famous falls at the summit. Soaked and stressed, I protested. At the base of the mountain, a voice in my head warned me, turn around. This isn't a good idea. I yelled into the wind as rain washed gravel and dirt onto the road. Bobby blurred into the scenery a few paces ahead. Gringo and JD had disappeared around the bend. My bike wobbled. I was going too fast. I cared less about waterfalls and overlooks. I wanted to arrive at our destination intact. Cliffs rushed at me, steep and wet and green. Rain splashed into my eyes. The road curved sharply, vibrated beneath me. My arms ached with tension and I drifted, my tires sliding into the grass shoulder. The impact was like hitting ice. Then suddenly I was no longer riding. I separated from my bike, watched it slam into the guardrail at 50 miles an hour. I sailed through the air, weightless, over jagged rocks and edges, over my bike, the handlebars, the chrome. Then, as if the film fast-forwarded, I descended with a thumping impact. I felt no pain, just tightness in my chest, as if I were underwater trying to breathe. Then a strange knocking on my head, a fluttering of light, like a shade being pulled up, then snapped down. The impact had knocked the wind from my lungs. Shep, I heard Bobby's voice, distorted hollow like a voice in a dream. Shep. My eyes startled open. Bobby loomed above me, his face stricken, ashen. Tell Gringo to slow the fuck down, I managed, but it didn't sound like me. I couldn't breathe. I felt lightheaded. I needed my inhaler. I reached to my front pants pocket. Don't move. Bobby put a hand on my shoulder and reached for his medic kit. Fear skittered across his eyes. His usually calm face, covered with gray beard, tensed. Subtle changes in his coloring, a reddish flush on his cheeks, telegraphed what he saw. Can't breathe. He must have heard me because he retrieved my inhaler. Remove my helmet. Bad idea, Bobby protested. My fucking helmet. I was screaming inside. It felt like my head was going to explode. Bobby relented. He removed my helmet, held the inhaler to my mouth, and a rush of air flooded into my lungs. I wanted to vomit. Sharp pain stabbed my knee. Bobby worked methodically and, with a pair of shears, cut away my pants. He inspected my bluish stained skin. Gringo huddled nearby, tension stiffening his shoulders. He cradled his helmet. Wind flattened his beard and pulled at his cheeks. Worry flickered across his face. I wanted to shout, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm intact. Sirens wailed. An ambulance launched off the road and rumbled toward me. Dull ache hit my shoulder. State troopers arrived and their patrol cars navigated the steep terrain. "You alright?" JD's voice came at me in slow motion. My shoulder throbbed and I had a slight ache in my neck. Medics wrapped me in a collar. Disdain covered their faces. They looked at me and saw a criminal, a biker, an outlaw. Fleetingly, I worried they might cut through my vest to treat me. Even disoriented, I thought about character and reaction. I was an outlaw outside, an injured informant inside. I thought about my bike. The ambulance doors closed. Almost instantly, pain shot through my shoulder and neck. At the hospital, staff injected me with medication through IV drips. The room spun. Smells of bleach assaulted my nostrils. Cold blew across my bare toes. I gripped my vest tightly to my chest. "Fight for your colors." The mantra was ingrained in my head, even in my medicated state. Only when Gringo appeared did I dare release my cuts. He folded them reverberantly and tucked them beneath his arm. They were safe. It didn't matter that I was broken, that I was in a hospital. That pain numbed me. There were no reprieves. Brian's ordeal still smarted in my thoughts. I shivered in my thin paper robe. Bruises on my legs darkened and spread. A fresh-faced nurse drew back my curtains and wheeled me down a long hallway toward a drafty room. I needed an x-ray. "I might have a broken neck," she said. At first, I didn't register her words. She spoke a foreign language. A broken neck? Not possible. I felt fine. I could still wiggle my fingers. Then fear mixed with panic as visions of my mom resurfaced. She had suffered a broken neck after a fall down a flight of stairs. Screws bolted her together. Fine hair sprouted like tufts of dead grass between bare patches of skull. I worried she might rust and separate. In the x-ray room, cold shuddered through me. Pressure pushed against my bladder. I needed to pee. "You can't," the technician cautioned. He was young, early 20s, hunched over a chart. He didn't look at me. I was patient, not outlaw, not person. "I have to pee," I insisted, but none of my muscles worked. I was too doped up. As the minutes ticked by, I started to hyperventilate. Frustration formed a dull headache. Propped in the wheelchair, my neck in a collar, I panicked. What if I never peed again? What if I never walked again? How was I supposed to live? I hadn't called my wife. I didn't want to tell her yet that I was broken. The technician, maybe sensing my distress, handed me a paper cup. I wobbled to my feet, afraid I might fall over. I swayed, held the cup in front of me, parted my robe, and tried to pee. Minutes passed and still no progress. The technician stared dully at me, waiting patiently for me to finish. Nothing came. My muscles, too relaxed, could not release urine. I became acutely aware of sounds, the hum of the air conditioner, the click of the technician's pen. I watched shadows, my giant shape on the wall, suddenly reduced to human bodily functions. This is what I had become. Pee, damn it. The thought that I might pee from a plastic bag terrified me more than any outlaw raid. After 7 long minutes, warm liquid flowed into the cup. "Good news," the doctor said, pulling up a stool. An hour later, "Your neck is fractured, but there's no damage to the spinal cord." A fractured neck? How was I supposed to work with no neck? But my right shoulder had suffered a rotator cuff tear that required immediate surgery. Instead, the doctor prescribed strong pain medication and the hospital released me after 4 hours. I guessed it was because Chief had no medical insurance. My other identity did, but there was no practical way to clear up that confusion. My mind, so fogged from drugs, barely processed his words. Blinding pain incapacitated my right arm. My neck was immovable and in a brace. I wanted to quit, but I couldn't. I was a private contractor and I needed the work. I needed the ATF to pay my medical bills. I had a stable fracture. I could do this. The thought of lying there on the floor or in the van repelled me. "I need a hotel," I mumbled. "Plenty of ice and a decent bed." Hotels at least had ice machines. At the regional meeting, members blurred into the walls. Their voices buzzed in my ears like white noise. Bosses discussed war. It was no longer enough to assault and maim Hell's Angels. We needed to kill them, earn our SS bolts if we committed extreme acts of violence against them. Okay, got it. Mentally, I had checked out, drifted to a calm place full of bright colors and soft sounds. After 2 hours in blinding pain, a prospect finally drove me to my hotel. I slept, awake, my arm packed in ice, propped up, throbbing. When I closed my eyes, I saw shadow figures moving against the wall, each lighter than the other, the last practical floating toward the ceiling. They were me, and I was slowly fading out. In some nightmares, I couldn't move at all. My body stretched across the bed like a morgue slab. I couldn't lift my head, couldn't feel my limbs, completely dead inside. Then Gringo appeared in the doorway, his eyes overbright, a large grin on his face as he steered in my custom-built bike perfectly designed for paraplegics. Claw confided one night over drinks that he couldn't take it anymore. He looked particularly agitated, his face sweaty and flushed. His shoulders shook. My accident had really fucked him up, and he just didn't know anymore whether he was cut out for this assignment. "You're quitting?" I took a pull on my beer. I felt sorry for Claw. I doubted whether he was cut out for any assignment. Claw shook his head. Fat tears snaked down his neck. He brushed them away with the back of his hand. In the dim lights, he looked even thinner, as if he had been squeezed through a taffy machine. "I don't know, man. I don't know." "You can't quit." I was incredulous. "I can't do this no more." He ordered another beer, told the bartender to put it on his tab. "You're an outlaw." He looked at me, his eyes watery and bloodshot, his breath stinking of alcohol, and said, "You don't understand, man. I might die doing this." After that conversation, he disappeared, and it took the agents nearly 2 months to find him. But it didn't matter much. Once we were full patches, we no longer needed the requisite 5 members. We could manage with 4. 1 month after the accident, I squeezed in a shoulder surgery. After a 6-hour operation, doctors implanted screws into my bone and prescribed pain medication every 4 hours. 3 times a week, in between being an outlaw, an occupational therapist stretched out my arm, but the pain only increased. I wasn't getting better. I wasn't healing.